You ever notice how some people drain your energy no matter how kind you are to them? You try being patient, understanding, polite, thinking maybe, just maybe they'll change. But instead they take more, they expect more, and they respect you less. That's what happens when you deal with a narcissist using niceness. Because niceness doesn't teach boundaries, it rewards manipulation. And the truth is, you can't change a narcissist by being kind. You only teach them that their behavior works. But there's a better way, a stronger, quieter way that doesn't require shouting, arguing, or losing yourself. Today, I want to show you how to stop being controlled by them and start standing in your own calm power. You don't need to fight a narcissist to win. You just need to stop playing their game. Narcissists are masters at turning peace into chaos and confidence into confusion. They know how to twist every word, every silence, every moment until you start second-guessing yourself. The truth is, they don't argue to understand, they argue to dominate. And when you step into their ring, they've already won because they control the rules. They decide when the conversation starts, when it ends, and how it spirals. You walk away feeling exhausted, angry, and unsure of what just happened, while they walk away satisfied because they got what they came for, your reaction. That's their fuel. Every sigh, every defense, every attempt to make them see your side feeds the very thing you want to stop. So if you want to reclaim your peace, you have to take back your emotional energy. You do that by refusing to feed the cycle. You stop giving them the reaction they crave. This doesn't mean you become cold or unkind. It means you become calm and intentional. You start to respond instead of react. When they provoke, you don't explain. When they twist your words, you don't defend. When they play the victim, you don't rescue. You keep your composure because your calm is power, and power is the one thing they can't stand. They want chaos because chaos gives them control, but calm gives you clarity. The moment you realize you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to, you start to see how much control you actually have. You can't control what they say or do, but you can control what you allow to affect you. You can control your breathing, your tone, your silence. You can control whether or not you explain yourself to someone who's already decided not to listen. You can choose not to chase validation from someone incapable of giving it. That's emotional maturity. That's what strength looks like. It's not loud, it's steady. It's not reactive, it's rooted. It's the quiet confidence that says, I don't need to prove who I am. I already know. When you stop reacting, narcissists get confused. They poke, they provoke, they test your limits, but nothing works. That silence you hold, it unsettles them. Because for once, they're not in control of your emotions. You're showing them a new kind of power, one that doesn't rely on winning the argument, but on walking away from it. You're showing them that you don't need their approval, and that's what really breaks their hold over you. Narcissists feed on being needed, being chased, being the center of your emotional world. The moment they realize they no longer have that, they start to lose their power. But here's the part most people miss. You don't stay calm for them, you stay calm for you. Because peace isn't about making them change, it's about protecting your own energy. When you keep engaging, you drain yourself trying to fix what was never yours to fix. You can't out-reason someone who distorts reality. You can't out-care someone who uses empathy as a weapon. You can't win by being nicer, softer, or more forgiving because they see kindness as weakness. They exploit it, not respect it. So the answer isn't to become harsher, it's to become wiser. You start seeing their patterns for what they are, a cycle designed to pull you in and wear you down. And once you see the pattern, you can choose not to play. You start setting boundaries not to punish them, but to protect your peace. You stop over-explaining because you realize your worth isn't up for debate. You stop apologizing for things you didn't do, for feelings you didn't cause, for limits you have every right to set. You stop rescuing people who refuse to take responsibility for themselves. That's not selfishness, that's self-respect. You begin to understand that empathy without boundaries isn't compassion, it's self-destruction. And when you stand in that calm space, something powerful happens. You gain clarity. You start seeing how much energy you've been giving to people who never deserve that level of access to your emotions. You start seeing how much time you've spent explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. You start realizing that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's saying, I don't owe anyone my peace just to prove my kindness. You can be kind and still say no. You can be understanding and still walk away. You can be loving and still choose distance. That's the real shift, understanding that you can't control them, but you can master yourself. And mastering yourself means not letting someone else's behavior dictate your peace. It means not letting manipulation determine your mood. It means choosing silence when your ego wants to argue, choosing calm when your emotions want to explode, choosing stillness when chaos tries to pull you in. That's not suppression. That's strength under control. That's how you win without fighting. The more you practice this, the more you realize that their chaos doesn't belong to you. Their drama isn't your responsibility. You don't need to diagnose them, fix them, or make them understand. You just need to recognize that peace is your baseline, not something they can give or take away. You start seeing your reactions as currency, and you stop spending them where there's no return. That's when everything starts to change. You move differently. You speak differently. You respond with quiet confidence, not fear or frustration. You start to embody the truth that calm is not passive. It's powerful. Because calm doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself to not get dragged into someone else's storm. You'll find that when you hold that energy long enough, your world begins to feel lighter. Conversations that used to exhaust you no longer do. Triggers that once pulled you and start to lose their power. You stop waiting for them to change and start changing the way you engage. You stop giving your peace away for the price of being understood. That's the kind of growth that narcissists can't touch because it's internal. It's not about them anymore. It's about you reclaiming your focus, your dignity, and your emotional freedom. And once you taste that kind of calm, you never want to go back. The biggest mistake people make when dealing with a narcissist is believing that change will come from convincing them. You think if you just explain your side clearly enough, if you show them how much you care, if you love them through their pain, they'll finally see what they're doing. But that moment never comes. Because narcissists don't operate from a place of self-awareness. They operate from self-preservation. They can't handle accountability because it threatens the fragile image they've built of themselves. Every time you try to have a real conversation, they don't hear your feelings. They hear a threat to their ego. So instead of listening, they deflect. Instead of apologizing, they project. Instead of connecting, they control. And the more you try to make them understand, the more they make you feel like you're the problem. You end up walking on eggshells, adjusting your tone, softening your words, trying to avoid conflict that somehow still finds you anyway. You start questioning yourself, thinking, maybe I really am too sensitive. Maybe I do overreact. Maybe I should have said it differently. That's what emotional manipulation looks like. It slowly convinces you to doubt your reality until you start apologizing just to keep the peace. But peace built on silence isn't peace, it's suppression. It's losing your voice so someone else can stay comfortable. And the longer you do it, the smaller you feel until you start to forget who you were before the manipulation started. That's why your healing doesn't come from getting them to understand. It comes from understanding yourself again. When you stop chasing validation from someone who's committed to misunderstanding you, you begin to reclaim your strength. You start to see that closure doesn't come from their apology, it comes from your acceptance. Acceptance that they may never see what they've done. Acceptance that they may never change. Acceptance that your worth was never dependent on their recognition. That's not giving up, it's growing up. It's emotional maturity that says, I can't change you, but I can change what I tolerate. You start to separate their behavior from your identity. You stop taking their blame personally because you understand projection for what it is, reflection of their pain, not your value. That's when the power dynamic shifts, because the moment you stop defending yourself, you stop being their emotional puppet. Narcissists thrive on emotional dependency. They want to know you care enough to argue, cry, beg, and explain. The moment you stop doing that, they lose their grip. You take back the steering wheel of your emotions. And that's the most threatening thing to a narcissist, someone they can't emotionally control. You become unpredictable to their manipulation, and that unpredictability makes them powerless. But here's the challenge, detachment isn't easy. It takes practice to stay calm when someone pushes your buttons on purpose. It takes restraint to walk away when every part of you wants to prove your point. It takes discipline to choose silence when your ego wants the last word. But that's how emotional mastery is built, not in comfort, but in control. Every time you choose not to react, you're rewiring your nervous system. You're teaching your body that safety doesn't come from their approval, it comes from your own peace. You start responding with intention instead of impulse, and that quiet response becomes your power move. This kind of calm doesn't come from pretending everything's fine. It comes from seeing things clearly and choosing peace anyway. It's not passive, it's deliberate. It's you saying, I know who I am, I know what's happening, and I'm choosing not to feed it. That's strength with direction. That's confidence without noise. Because you can't out-talk a narcissist, but you can out-center them. You can be so grounded in who you are that their chaos can't pull you in anymore. You can listen without absorbing, observe without reacting, and walk away without guilt. That's when you know you've outgrown their control. And when you start living in that state, you begin to see how much peace you've been sacrificing for people who would never do the same for you. You start valuing silence over arguments, clarity over chaos, and boundaries over approval. You stop measuring your worth by how others treat you and start defining it by how you treat yourself. You begin to protect your energy like it's something sacred, because it is. You realize your attention is currency, and you stop spending it on things that keep you emotionally broke. That's how healing happens, not in the moment they change, but in the moment you stop needing them to. It's a mindset shift. Instead of asking, why do they like this? You start asking, why do I keep allowing this? That question stings, but it's the one that sets you free. Because it puts the power back where it belongs, in your hands. You stop waiting for accountability from someone incapable of giving it and start taking accountability for your boundaries, your peace, your decisions. You stop waiting for them to treat you better and start treating yourself better. You stop hoping they'll recognize your worth and start living like you already know it. That's not arrogance. That's self-respect in motion. You'll notice something beautiful happens when you start living that way. The same situations that used to break you now barely shake you. The same conversations that once triggered you now lose their effect. You stop craving closure because you're too focused on peace. You stop proving yourself because you've already accepted yourself. That's what real growth looks like. It's not loud, it's not dramatic. It's quiet and steady. It's choosing yourself in moments where you used to abandon yourself. It's recognizing that you can't save someone who doesn't see a problem, and you're done sacrificing your sanity trying to. You realize that your healing doesn't require their cooperation. It doesn't need their approval. It doesn't even need their apology. All it needs is your decision to move differently, to stop explaining what you meant, to stop overcompensating for what they lack, to stop waiting for their validation to feel whole. You stop living in reaction to who they are and start living in alignment with who you are. That's when your peace becomes permanent. That's when you stop being controlled not because they changed, but because you did. That's how you break the cycle. That's how you win the quiet way. One of the hardest lessons you'll ever learn when dealing with a narcissist is that walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. Most people stay longer than they should because they believe leaving means they failed. They think if they could just try harder, love deeper, or be more understanding, things would finally change. But staying in a cycle that only hurts you isn't loyalty, it's self-abandonment. Narcissists are experts at making you believe that the problem is your lack of effort. They convince you that if you just do one more thing right, if you just forgive one more time, they'll finally give you the respect you deserve. But that moment never comes, because they're not looking for partnership, they're looking for control. They don't want equality, they want compliance. And as long as you keep trying to earn their love, you'll stay trapped in a loop of confusion, guilt, and disappointment. Real strength isn't improving your worth to someone who refuses to see it, in recognizing when your peace costs too much and having the courage to reclaim it. Walking away doesn't mean you stopped caring. It means you finally started caring about yourself. It means you decided that your emotional health, your peace, and your dignity matter more than maintaining an illusion of connection. That's not being cruel, that's being conscious. It's understanding that some people can't meet you where you are because they refuse to leave where they are. And that's not your fault. Your responsibility is not to drag them into awareness, it's to stay aware yourself. When you start choosing peace over proximity, something shifts inside you. You begin to see how much of your identity was wrapped around trying to please people who only valued you when you were useful. You see how much energy you've spent explaining your intentions to people determined to misunderstand them. And you realize that walking away isn't losing, it's letting go of what was already gone. Because the truth is, you never had their genuine respect to begin with. You had their interest as long as you played your part. The moment you stopped feeding their ego, you became a threat. That's why they suddenly devalue you, discard you, or try to make you doubt your decision. It's not about you, it's about their loss of control. But you don't owe them an explanation for choosing peace. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't have to justify why you're no longer available for manipulation. Growth doesn't require announcement. It shows in your silence, in your absence, in your boundaries. Every time you choose not to engage, you're reminding yourself that you don't need chaos to feel connection. Every time you resist the urge to explain, you're teaching yourself that peace doesn't need validation. Every time you stop checking whether they've changed, you're proving to yourself that you have. This process of detachment is uncomfortable at first. You'll feel guilt because narcissists train you to believe that choosing yourself is selfish. They use shame as a leash to keep you emotionally tied to them. They make you feel responsible for their feelings, their reactions, even their happiness. But none of that belongs to you. You can care about someone's pain without carrying it. You can wish them healing without sacrificing yours. You can forgive without reconnecting. Forgiveness doesn't mean giving them access. It means releasing the hold they have on your mind. You stop letting their voice echo in your head, telling you who you are and what you're worth. You start hearing your own voice again, clear and grounded, and that's when true freedom begins, because narcissists don't just manipulate your emotions, they manipulate your focus. They keep you so busy analyzing them that you forget to reflect on yourself. You forget your dreams, your needs, your joy. So when you step away, all that energy that used to go into trying to fix them starts flowing back into you. You rediscover your confidence. You start setting goals for yourself again. You start surrounding yourself with people who value you, not for how much they can take, but for who you are. That's what healing looks like. It's not about replacing them. It's about rediscovering you. You start realizing that peace isn't something you find outside yourself. It's something you protect inside yourself. You learn that boundaries aren't walls, they're filters. They don't keep love out, they keep manipulation out. And the right people will never be threatened by your boundaries. They'll feel safe because of them. You'll begin to notice how calm feels strange at first because you're so used to chaos, but over time, calm becomes your new normal. You stop confusing intensity with intimacy, drama with connection, apologies with accountability. You start craving consistency instead of excitement, truth instead of flattery, depth instead of performance. That's how your standards change. Not because you became harder to please, but because you finally learn what peace feels like and you refuse to lose it again. And when you get to that point, something powerful happens. You stop needing closure from people who were never capable of giving it. You understand that closure isn't something they can give you. It's something you give yourself by choosing not to return. You stop checking their social media, stop replaying old conversations, stop wondering if they ever cared. Because whether they did or didn't doesn't change what you deserve. You're done analyzing the story from their perspective. You're writing a new one from yours. And in this story, you're no longer the person trying to be understood. You're the person who finally understands yourself. That's the transformation narcissists never expect. They expect you to break, to chase, to explain. But instead, you get quiet, you get focused, you start to glow in ways that don't require their validation. You start thriving in the peace they once told you didn't exist without them. That's what real power looks like. Not revenge, not resentment, but release. Letting go so completely that their name no longer carries weight, their memory no longer drains your energy, and their opinion no longer shapes your worth. You move on not because you stopped caring, but because you started caring correctly. When you finally walk away, you realize that being nice never worked because niceness was never the problem. It was the expectation that niceness would change someone who benefits from your pain. The real change happened when you turned that same kindness inward. When you gave yourself the compassion, patience, and forgiveness you kept giving away. When you stopped waiting for them to change and started becoming the person you were always meant to be. That's when the cycle ends. That's when your peace begins